The Mad Max series is a great series of films from the 70s and 80s, and then a really fantastic film that came out in 2015. The first three, oh, where's Beyond Thunderdome? Crap. The Road Warrior is one of the best action films out of the 1980s. I really enjoy this one. Beyond Thunderdome is not that great. It's really weird, and it's a watered down PG-13 Mad Max, but Mad Max Fury Road is one of the greatest action films I've ever seen. Charlize Theron, oh my god. This movie for strong female characters, really good. I love superhero films, but I don't think there is a superhero film that has been more divisive when I talk to people about it than Man of Steel, directed by Zack Snyder. Some people love this movie, some people absolutely hate this film. I fall in the middle. I think it's a good film. It's 6 or 7 out of 10. Very interesting visual style, and I gotta pick up Batman v Superman when it comes out on Blu-ray. I've heard the extended cut is very good, so fingers crossed anyway. This one I own purely out of nostalgia, but I also think it's a good movie. The Mask of Zorro. I grew up watching this film on repeat on my VHS cassette player, and it is just a lot of fun. Martin Campbell directed this. He did Casino Royale and GoldenEye as well, which is, after he did GoldenEye, they brought him on to do this one. Good choice. Anthony Hopkins and Antonio Banderas are very good, and there's a scene with Catherine Zeta-Jones and Antonio Banderas that I really liked when I was little. Mission Impossible series. I have all of them on Blu-ray. The first one is directed by Brian De Palma, and it's a very good, a little bit slower spy action film. Not too much action actually. It's more of a spy film, and it should be. The second one is a full-blown action affair from John Woo. It's probably the weakest in the entire series. It's a little bit too style over substance, but I still enjoy it. The third one was J.J. Abrams' first feature-length film, and it is a really great one. Philip Seymour Hoffman is the best villain that the series ever had. He is absolutely chilling in this movie. The opening scene alone is just incredibly effective. Great film. Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol is just a film loaded to the brim with action set piece after action set piece. Brad Bird, who did The Incredibles, which is one of my favorite films, did this film. This really put the Mission Impossible series on the map. The first three were good. This one was great. You get much of the same with Mission Impossible 5 Rogue Nation, directed by Christopher McQuarrie, who wrote The Usual Suspects. This is probably the funniest film in the series, and it has some of the best action scenes, including a thrilling motorcycle chase and a really intense, really well shot, really well put together opening scene on a plane. Well, obviously, there it is right there. Tom Cruise hanging off a plane. You madman. You Scientologist madman. But I love you. Call it. No Country for Old Men. Probably the best Coen Brothers film. Big Lebowski and Fargo are really great as well. I really like this one. This is another one of those films that after repeated viewings, I really don't think I have anything that I find wrong with this movie. Quite possibly the most underrated James Bond film is On Her Majesty's Secret Service, starring the one-time George Lazenby. The only problem with this film is the guy playing James Bond, George Lazenby. This is the one where Bond gets married, and it ends the way that you probably suspect it would end if James Bond were to get married. This is a great film, good cinematography. Man, oh man, have I not seen a movie as polarizing as Only God Forgives. The follow-up to Drive, not a true sequel, but it's more of a spiritual successor in style. Ryan Gosling has 17 lines of dialogue throughout the entire 92-minute film. I'm not going to say too much about this movie if you haven't seen it. Know that if you do watch it off of my recommendation, you might absolutely hate it, and you might call me up at my house and call me an idiot. I can understand if you hate this film. I can really get it, but I don't. Pirates of the Caribbean: The Curse of the Black Pearl is a great movie. I remember seeing this in theaters. I love this movie. It's a lot of fun. I don't know why I don't own the other films in the series on Blu-ray. They're all a lot of fun, but this is my favorite. Quite possibly the film I've seen the most times in my life, The Princess Bride. I can watch this film all day, every day, and it never gets old. It's incredibly quotable, lots of fun. There's not really anything to not like about this movie. It's just, it's a great time. Daniel Craig's follow-up to Casino Royale is the incredibly disappointing Quantum of Solace. Now, when I say disappointing, do I mean it's an awful film? It's not an awful film. The editing in this film is some of the worst editing for an action movie I've ever seen in my life. The story doesn't make too much sense. The Bond girl is not that interesting. I mean, Judi Dench is still great as M. Daniel Craig is still good as Bond. There's some good scenes in this film, but at the end of the day, coming off of Casino Royale, which is my favorite Bond film, this is incredibly disappointing. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre is directed by Tobe Hooper. This film is absolutely insane. I wouldn't recommend watching it, to be honest. I do respect the filmmakers for what they did to the horror genre by making this film. It's a very scary movie, but I probably won't ever pop it in unless it's like a group hangout night and we're gonna have a scary movie night. We'll watch Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I will never forget seeing Paranormal Activity for the first time. It was down here in this basement, and It was about me and about 8 of my friends. And I don't think I saw 50% of this film because I was just hiding under my pillow. Yes, I admit I was scared shitless by this movie. What one would call Tarantino's magnum opus is Pulp Fiction. This is a fantastic film. Some of you may not like it. I understand if you don't. I understand if you don't like the violence or the swearing or the drug use or the sexual content. But this is classic Tarantino. Every Tarantino film after this has been compared to Pulp Fiction as to whether or not it is good, as good, or better than it. The Raid 2 is quite possibly has some of the best fight choreography I've ever seen in a film. This is a very good action movie. It's a little bit too long. I should pick up the first one as well. I have seen that multiple times. The first one is excellent. It's incredibly fast-paced. Reservoir Dogs is the first film directed by Quentin Tarantino and is very inspiring to me as a young filmmaker because he made this film with practically nothing. If you actually read into it, all the costumes were just what the actors had at home and they just brought it in. Really, the film just takes place at a warehouse and a couple other locations, mostly a warehouse. This is a shockingly violent film. There's a lot of really hardcore graphic violence in here. But if you can take that, you can take some swearing, and it is a very good crime drama. The first Ultra HD release that I picked up is well deserved for The Revenant. I don't own a 4K TV or an Ultra HD disc, but you do get the Blu-ray with this as well. The Revenant is a fantastic film. It's probably the best frontier movie or survival film I've ever seen in my life. Leonardo DiCaprio, well-deserved Oscar. Finally, man, you finally did it. Tom Hardy, also, dare I say it, as good as Leonardo DiCaprio in this film. Tom Hardy is an excellent villain in this movie. Cinematography is godlike, and yeah, check it out. The second film that Sam Mendes directed was Road to Perdition with Tom Hanks, Paul Newman, and Jude Law. This is a very good movie, also starring Daniel Craig, who Sam Mendes would later direct in Spectre and Skyfall. Great crime drama, it's a great mafia film, and yeah, I just really enjoy this movie. It's a good Father's Day movie, even though the ending's not really... Brian De Palma's Scarface is classic, just excess. There's excess in swearing, violence, sex, drugs, just everything that you would want out of like a pulpy 1980s movie. This movie captures what the 80s was, which was a shitload of cocaine. In my opinion, far and away, Spielberg's best film is Schindler's List. Now, is it the film I've seen the most from him? No, I've probably seen Indiana Jones or Jaws a lot more than Schindler's List. I've only seen Schindler's List twice. It's an important film. It's a dramatically, emotionally satisfying piece of work. And you can tell that he really made this from the heart, and that's why he won Best Director, and that's why the film won Best Picture. Great film. The highest rated movie on the Internet Movie Database is The Shawshank Redemption. Well deserved, in my opinion. I'd probably put this in my top 10. There's practically nothing wrong with this film. This is a technically flawless movie. Great performances, a phenomenal soundtrack and cinematography from Roger Deakins. My God, man. Give Roger Deakins an Oscar. I swear to God, if he doesn't win an Oscar in the next couple of years, I'm going to riot. By far and away, Kubrick's scariest film is The Shining. I love The Shining. This is one of my favorite Kubrick films. Good kid acting as well. I forget the child's name. Damn it. Danny Lloyd. Danny's not here, Mrs. Torrance. Denis Villeneuve is perhaps one of the best directors working today, and Sicario, in my opinion, is his best film so far. This was a fantastically made Splinter Cell-esque spy film with some really tense scenes and some great action. Benicio del Toro is incredible in this movie, and Emily Blunt is a really great lead as well. Josh Brolin's good in the movie too. Technically, Skyfall would be the best film in the James Bond franchise. It is the most well-shot, well-acted, possibly has the best villain in the franchise in Javier Bardem. Personally, I like Casino Royale just a smidgen more. This falls into second place, and second out of 24 films is pretty great. The follow-up to Skyfall is the newest James Bond film, Spectre, which I picked up on Blu-ray. A little bit of trouble with Spectre. It's not the greatest James Bond film, which is okay. It's still a good adventure film. And it's just a little disappointing coming off of Skyfall. There's still some great action, and Daniel Craig's a good James Bond. There's a lot of memorable moments in here. It's just, it's missing something that Skyfall had, which was an emotional connection to the story. The story here falls a little bit flat. Still a good movie. I recommend checking it out. J.J. Abrams' Star Trek was great. I'm not the biggest Trek fan in the world, but I do enjoy when a well-made movie is made, and J.J. Abrams made a good movie with Star Trek. I don't own Into Darkness. It was good, but I just haven't picked it up. Star Wars prequels. Star Wars The Force Awakens was a fantastic film. I was so happy that this movie turned out as well as it did. You may be wondering where the original trilogy is. I don't own the original trilogy on Blu-ray. I actually own the despecialized editions because that's the only way that you should be watching the original Star Wars films. Very underrated J.J. Abrams film that really struck a chord with me because it harkened back to how I was when I was a kid. Super 8. This is a really fun movie. Close Encounters vibe going on. Steven Spielberg was the producer on this film. I really enjoyed this movie. It's a lot of fun, and as I said, it means a lot to me. Looking at this film with a group of kids making a movie reminds me of when I was little, running around with a camera. Some of the weirdest but more creative horror movies to come out in the last 10 years was the VHS trilogy. VHS 1 is incredibly scary. This is an anthology horror film, a collection of 6 stories. Some are not that great, some are good. It's a little too misogynist for my taste, actually. I think it's a pretty sexist film, which that's the one main draw against it. VHS 2 improves upon this. I think VHS 2 is a really great sequel. The director of The Raid and The Raid 2 had a segment in here that was really, really crazy. VHS 3 or VHS Viral is a piece of shit. M. Night Shyamalan's The Visit. I should own more Shyamalan films, specifically his more early works. The Sixth Sense and Unbreakable are really great. Signs is good, and then afterwards it's just a downward spiral. But the Visit, he did pick himself back up, and come on, man, like, get back making good movies, please. The Happening is hilarious, but it's not good, man, not good. Probably my favorite Zack Snyder film is Watchmen. I know that there are some people that really don't like this movie. They call it overlong, but honestly, if you've read the graphic novel, which is probably the best graphic novel out there, this is a very, very good movie, very stylistic. It is a film that's tailor-made for Snyder's visual style. So, one of the most intense films about music that I've ever seen in my entire life, Whiplash. This is a great film with fantastic performances, intense as hell. It reminds me of Full Metal Jacket. But in band, essentially. J.K. Simmons' legendary villainous performance in this film. One of the more disturbing films that I've seen in the last couple years was The Witch, a New England folktale. This is an incredibly scary movie that really gets under your skin, but it is not what you'd expect out of a scary film. A lot of people went into this thinking that they were going to get jump scares and gore. That's not what you get. What you get is a psychologically terrifying film. If you're up for it, I recommend it. And finally, at the end of our list, we have Zodiac, which is directed by David Fincher, far and away my favorite film of his. Every single time I watch this film, I get as involved in the case as I did the first time that I watched it. This is an incredibly well-made film, great performances all around. It's a very well-made movie. Oh. Well, that was a good way to spend the afternoon. I hope that you enjoyed that as much as I did, and if you want to see some more of that, I do have a crapload of video games at my disposal, and I would love to talk about those. I just hope you have a great rest of your day and are enjoying your summer. Adios.